live. And it says going live. Am I live? Am I doing it? Is it going live? I cannot tell. But hopefully people are seeing the disclaimer right now, and so I'll go over to our live stream. Please let me know, everyone. If you can see, we've already had people in the chat room, interestingly. I'm trying out the new live interface for YouTube. To quote the horse from the Ren and Stimpy cartoons, no, sir, I don't like it. Lots of crazy things about it. You have to start the stream before you go live, and it's crazy. But hello, Chris. How are you doing today?
Good. Looks like you're starting to become live, or...
Okay, hopefully people are seeing me. No comments are showing up, but we had a couple of people starting to comment before the live stream started, which is interesting. And one of them is Hugbug. And it says, we have a responsibility of care to those who are unable to care for themselves, like the elderly, and those who are suffering with pre-existing conditions. And I'll weigh in on that, but... all right. And the live chat, I'm seeing 246TNT and DarkEDN17, and they're not showing up on the screen. So that might be a bug with this. Why is it? I don't know why that wouldn't be showing up. I might have to just do a window capture and get the get the live chat. I don't know. Live chat just might not be on the screen for this one. I don't know. I'm going to go back to the old chat after this. Also, I don't know if any of you noticed, I'm sporting a new webcam, and this one seems to be handling the green screen a lot better, and I also like better resolution, and hopefully it'll be better for bandwidth and everything else. Fishron the Shark is in there. Not seeing them up on the
yeah, they're just saying things like "Hello, Shane, I'm back," stuff like that.
All right, we will keep an eye on them.
Yeah, I've got the thing on I've got it muted so it doesn't create any weird audio, but yeah.
So I've got that popped out, and so I guess we can go ahead and get into this Ron DeSantis story in Tampa Bay Times, basically telling bars to follow the social distancing guidelines or else he's going to revoke their liquor license. So, only if they're flagrant violators, whatever that means.
So basically another Florida man acting like a certain word that I'm not allowed to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says, Florida bars and restaurants that violate the state social distancing guidelines now risk losing their liquor license, according to Governor Ron DeSantis, who made the announcement at a news conference, and he says, quote, if you go in and it's just mayhem like Dance Party USA and it's packed to the rafters, that's just cut and dry. That's not an innocent mistake. So dancing is evil. We're recreating the movie Footloose. Vicky is saying, the chat's not showing the stream. Is that intentional? No, it's not. And I think it's because of YouTube's new live interface. And so I might be going back to the old one for as long as they'll allow me. It should be taking the chat and putting it right into the interface. And it's just a blank part of the screen where that's showing up. So if you want to see it, you'll have to go over to the side where it says the live chat. And if this is the archive, it should have archived the chat as well. So... And Fishron the Shark says, Florida man, that's me. Okay, so we got a Florida guy here. So yeah, don't go dancing or else the governor will get you. The governor said, what's that?
I said, yep, don't go dancing unless your name's Kevin Bacon.
Yep. The governor said that businesses that are clearly out of compliance with state rules can count on a visit from Department of Business and Professional Regulations Secretary Ashley Beezers, whom DeSantis called the Grim Reaper for business licenses. The fact that they even have the Grim Reaper, like his whole purpose is to shut down businesses.
Yeah. Then again, there's a lot of bureaucrats like that, like the only reason they're hired is to do, the bad, dirty work, basically.
So basically, they have to operate at 50% capacity. And it also says suspending the establishment's liquor license. They're talking about the Knights Pub in Orlando. Apparently, they had to be made an example of, which is always such a wonderful thing when governments do that.
Yep. Yeah, we gotta make an example of you because we don't want the commoners, getting too independent.
Fishron the Shark says, I'm gonna bust a boogie like it's Civil War II electric boogaloo. Yeah. Literally to the boogaloo. Going to a bar and but it says in Florida, which has a quota on the number of licenses it hands out, that's a stiff punishment. So they're artificially limiting the number of bars and pubs and everything else that there are. Like, isn't that wonderful? I mean, who does that benefit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just like the AMA. Speaking of which, Shane, I actually heard that there actually was a case I read about some on Reddit one time about a guy who it took him forever to become a doctor, even though he graduated from med school like in the top 10. And the reason he's like, well, why can't I get my medical license to become a doctor in this area? And they're like, well, it's because the AMA already filled its quota, so you're gonna have to wait another couple months before they'll give you your medical license.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All it does is mean the existing establishments, get to charge more money because they have less competition, and they actually lobbied for that. So.
Yep.
And Bicky points out something else about this live video. Someone disliked this live stream before it started. They clicked the down. I noticed that. Bicky points it out in the chat. Yeah. But I mean, let's think about this. If you're limiting the number of bars, then that means the people who want to go drink and dance have fewer establishments to go to. So that means those establishments are going to be more crowded. So if you had let more bars open, then you could accommodate the same number of people. And
or they'll just go to a liquor store, buy a whole bunch of booze, and have a party at home, and invite all their friends.
The office justified the suspension by noting the Knights Pub had repeatedly flouted social distancing rules. They didn't respect their authority. Yep. Packing the bar with patrons, more than 40 employees and patrons tested positive for coronavirus after frequenting the bar, according to local media reports. Now let's think about something. Who is it that's going to these bars? Is it elderly people and people with severe respiratory conditions? The ones who are actually at risk for COVID?
Yeah.
Or is it younger, healthy people who are more likely to be, just asymptomatic through it?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, if I recall correctly, when the coronavirus broke out in Europe, that's basically what Sweden did, while they did say, elderly people, babies, small children, and people with chronic respiratory conditions should stay in and practice social isolation. They let the younger, healthier people, continue a normal life, and from what I heard, it actually worked.
And it turns out they were actually wrong about the children, because children, usually they're a big risk group for the flu, but for some reason they can actually handle coronavirus really well, so they're not a risk group either. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, what's happening with all of these, 40 employees? They're building up an immunity to it. I mean, we don't even know when it happened. It could have happened weeks ago, and they could have already had the immunity, and when you get 60%, or like 66% maybe. I think the number varies. They've tried calculating different ways. But you get that certain percentage of the population immune, you have herd immunity, and that protects everyone else.
Yep, that's again, that's what happens in Sweden. I mean, that's why Sweden has a relatively low COVID-19 cases, because they did that. They let all the young, healthy people go out and get it, so now they're immune, so the people who are legitimately, at risk, from COVID, they're not going to get hurt because, like I said, of the herd immunity buffer.
But this gets better. In a statement, Michael D'Esposito, owner of the Knights Pub, blasted the state's move, quote, "Yesterday, false accounts of irresponsible business practices and the circulations of photos from 2019 to mislead the public in the time of COVID-19 are reckless and dangerous." So the pictures they want weren't even from like recent weeks during the outbreak. They were from last year, and they were presenting them as though they were recent.
Wow. Well, what else is new?
And he said the establishment was open for just 3 days. And he said, quote, Despite our limited reopening that was encouraged by our political leaders, our establishment is now being used as the scapegoat for all COVID-19 cases in the surrounding Orlando area.
Yep. No comment.
And Heather wonders why I don't want to move to Orlando. She lived in Orlando for many years. I don't know why she wants to move back. So
Well, even if there wasn't a pandemic outbreak, I've heard that contrary to what the TV shows and movies portray, Florida is not as pleasant to live in as you think it is.
I mean, Orlando is,
especially during the summer.
I mean, Orlando is pretty nice. We went to our honeymoon there, and so Heather knew where everything was, and she showed me around. So, I mean, it looks just as the city goes, it looks like a great place to live. But politics, if you never know when they're going to turn around and take your business license away, yeah, that's not a good thing. Okay, the department has received 106 complaints. One was about the Knights pub. So this all happened because of one person complaining.
$10 says it was a middle-aged woman called Karen.
Now let's see.
Did you hear what I said, Shane?
Yeah, I was just seeing if I missed anything in the chat.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so at a news conference, DeSantis continued to defend the state's reopening strategy on a day when Florida reported 3,289 new infections and 67 new deaths. The recent surge in cases can largely be attributed to more infections among a younger population that's at less risk. Okay, I'm going to reiterate something I said at the very beginning about these statistics. There's a lag. They're trying to imply that these 67 new deaths are of the 3,289 new infections. They're not. Those are too recent. It takes a couple of weeks for the virus to actually do its damage. It's actually the immune system that does the damage, but it takes a couple of weeks. So those 67 new deaths are from people who got infected weeks ago.
Yep.
So, what we've seen, and this is the governor quoting, what we've seen particularly over the last week is a real explosion in new cases amongst our younger demographics. Well, that's a good thing because they're at lower risk and they'll get an immunity and protect the rest of us.
Yep.
DeSantis said he's more concerned about the population that's at the highest risk for death or serious illness from the coronavirus. But if they're not the ones that are getting it now, if it's primarily among the younger demographics, then,
Yeah, if you want to protect the people that are legitimately at risk, do two things. Let people, who are at low risk of developing complications from the virus out so they can get immunity. And two, and this is just a little side note, stop being so micromanaging within the healthcare industry so businesses can develop proper antivirals and vaccines for us.
Yeah.
So that's a federal government problem, not just Florida's.
Yeah. So starting Friday, staff at all long-term care facilities must be tested every 2 weeks. And I mean, that is a big problem because there you have high-risk people. And like when, I think it was New York, Governor Cuomo, I think he was the one who said, yeah, you have to, all you, care facilities, you have to take coronavirus patients. And yeah, what could possibly go wrong with that? They just ended up infecting everyone else there. And most of them were high risk, so. Fisher on the Shark, Florida is actually pretty bad. I live in Pasco and Pinellas County. It's really crap here, but the fishing is pretty all right. It might end up like a colder flu passed around for a while. I think he was responding to Darky DN17, who asks, do you think the coronavirus will ever be eradicated? I don't know. I speculated on this before. It might be one of those things that 20 years from now we're vaccinating our kids for, just among the schedule. But, who knows?
Well, and that's the thing, people are acting like COVID-19 is the super bug that's going to kill us all, but it's like, look, we've had pandemics in the past before,
Oh, we've had plenty worse than COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I've said this before. Mankind has been putting up with this for thousands of years. We're just the first generation to freak out about it.
I've actually brought this up before. If anything, I remember, the Enron, aka swine flu, that's actually a much more deadly disease that came out, and yet we didn't react the same way we did. The only thing that they did was they were just going PSA saying, remember to sneeze in your hand. I think the only reason people are reacting to COVID-19 like the way it is because of the timing. It's 2020. There's an election coming up, and both parties want to be able to say, "Oh, look, we're doing something."
Oh, my nephew got H1N1, and man, it slammed him. For like a week, he was in bed, and he's someone who's always been. He's really healthy. He's very athletic. I think he was like 21, 22 when he got it. So, I mean, he should have been, young and healthy and low risk. He got H1N1 and it slammed him.
Yeah.
And after that, he said, everyone else can do what they want, but I'm getting my flu shot every year. He does not want that again.
Yeah, one of my teachers, had H1N1, and when he came back, he wasn't contagious, so he was safe, but, you could see the after effects, like he was flushed, he had his nose was just bright red,
Yeah.
Just...
Let's see. By and large, older Floridians have been more careful than younger ones when venturing in public. In their own news conference Tuesday, Florida Senate Democrats accused DeSantis of leaving the hard decisions to the local government and shifting blame to others. That's basically what they do, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Alistair Top, I work in retail security at a shopping center, and I can tell you social distancing is impossible to enforce. Yep, what you gonna do?
Yep.
How are you? Yeah, I mean, I've seen reports like when the police were going around trying to reinforce social distancing, a lot of epidemiologists were saying, all that means is if there's one person there that has it, they're going to be the one spreading it around to the others. So... All right, Senator Lori Berman of West Palm Beach said that while Orlando doctors attributed the spike in new COVID-19 cases to younger Floridians, quote, it's really disappointing that our leadership isn't giving us a plan of action. If government doesn't tell us what to do, then nothing gets done.
Yeah.
When the numbers are rising, and it's really scary for the average Floridian to think about the fact that the cases are going up, your risk of exposure is going up, your risk of sick is increasing, and yet there's no real concrete plan that we're going to deal with it. Well, because there isn't anything they can do, really.
Well, yeah, like I said, that's the only reason why they're quote-unquote doing something is because it's 2020, and there's a lot of major elections coming up, both presidential and local, so yeah. A lot of politicians are passing these rules because they want to say it's like, oh, look what I did. I did something.
I'm helping. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a joke. That's a joke I would do if I was U.S. president. They'd say President Hangartner, there's a resurgence of COVID-19. We have to do something. And I'm like, okay. And then I start sucking my thumb, and they're like, why are you sucking your thumb? It's like, you said I have to do something, so I'm doing something.
I passed an executive order banning COVID-19.
Yeah.
We will now arrest COVID-19 wherever it's found.
Yeah. Well, if I were president, I'd make being a Karen a capital offense. And for those of you that don't know, I'm not saying if your name's Karen, you're going to be in trouble. It's if you act like a Karen. You know what I'm talking about, right, Shane?
Yeah, the latest meme about Karen, the name Karen, and how it sounds like the way a lot of people say the word caring, dropping the G at the end.
Yeah. Well, also, it's often the middle-aged woman or the 30-year-old woman with 12 kids who's a busybody, and she calls the police, on you because, because, oh, your car was parked, 1 inch away from the driveway.
Yep. Sanguine in the chat says he had the recent corona back in March. As I work in healthcare, having to follow the rules when I'm not a risk to anyone or myself kind of sucks. Yeah, you're immune by this point.
Yep.
If you're immune, then it's like, hey, everyone, get behind me. I got this covered.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what herd immunity is. You get the immune people, and they have to be spread out among the population. But yeah, you get the herd immunity going, and that protects everyone. Dr. George Rawls, the medical chief quality officer at Orlando Health, who joined the governor at the news conference, said the surge in recent cases can be attributed more to changes in social behavior than reopened business. So it's just the fact that I think people are just kind of sick of all the social distancing and the mask wearing and everything. Yeah.
Actually, Shane, I think like what you said, when a lot of places, said, oh, we've got a rare exotic Chinese virus in America, you have to practice social distancing. That actually didn't stop the virus. If anything, all it did was delay it,
Yep. And he said, the community needs to think about where the risk really is and where we let our guard down. You can maintain a safe environment and open a business. Where we're letting our guard down are the pool parties, the social gatherings, the place where you're not thinking about transmission, but it's also the place where it's the younger, healthier population that's going together. And like I said, in a way, that's kind of what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, unless someone there lives or works around a high-risk person, in which case they should probably, do all the social distancing, but...
Yeah, like you said, that's what you said, if you don't have a vaccine for a disease, then the next best thing you got to do is make sure all the low-risk people get the bug, so they can do it. I don't want to sound like, a pox, mother, but if there is no vaccine, then yeah, you should do it. Now, I'm not saying you should deliberately try to get yourself infected, but, you want to encourage a scenario where herd immunity will take effect.
Right. And I skipped a part I wanted to read. I don't know how I ended up skipping it. But earlier, DeSantis is talking about Beshears, and Beshears is the... Beshears is the Department of Business and Professional Regulation Secretary. Basically, the thug is going to send out, we're going to have to send out Guido to break your fingers. So...
Yep.
Anyway, so he says of Beshears, quote, hopefully he won't need to be doing a lot of suspensions, but I reckon he's probably going to need to do a few more to really send a message. It's about sending a message.
Oh.
That's what they always do. They send a message. We've got to send a message to, the rich, or we got to send a message to parents or whatever. Personally, I wish all these politicians would take their messages, shove them into the bottles, and throw them into the sea because I'm tired of hearing them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I would also do if I were president. They're like President Hangartner, we gotta send, the troublemakers a message. I'll be like, okay. I'll grab a piece of pen and paper and I'll be like, okay, what do you want me to say? Yeah. And also, I'm gonna need you to make this copy, and I'm gonna need you to track down all the troublemakers so I can mail it to them. Yeah.
And we'll light some incense and burn it into the incense, so our message will be carried to heaven.
Yeah.
I don't see any comments here on Tampa Bay Times. That would be interesting to see how people react to this. It also looks like we've got Micro Blue joining us right as we're ready to wrap things up. So.
Oh, great.
That's timing for you. How you doing, Macro?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. All right.
I was hoping for some more because I opened this one up to the public, and last time I did it, it was kind of beautiful chaos, but it wasn't anything unmanageable. But
yeah, I only just got up a little bit ago, so
yeah. I'm barely awake myself, Macro Blue. I actually woke up like 5 minutes before Shane even started, so
yeah, I just wrapped up watching the first episode of not the first episode, but the Unbiased History episode of Augustus. So
the Roman Emperor?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we've got a good number of viewers to this, but I think I don't know, because I've heard reports that people didn't get the alert for this, and I think it's just I'm going back to the old chat system for as long as they'll let me, because this one I don't think it didn't notify people, and the chat's not showing up in the stream, and yeah.
Maybe it's YouTube trying to censor you.
I don't know. No, I think it's just the new chat system and the new live stream system.
Speaking of which, I noticed your June Bogosity podcast still is down.
Oh yeah, the appeal was denied.
Oh great!
Yep. Won't tell me why. It's a terms of service violation. I have no clue why, because if you go through every single one of the stories I covered, and you go searching on YouTube, there are plenty of other people talking about the things I was.
Yeah, I think I saw that message you posted. Yeah, it's like you asked them saying, okay, what exactly terms of service did I violate? And they're like, well, just read them and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, here's the same link we gave you 100 times before that was absolutely no help.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like, well, no nudity. Well, okay, it's an audio podcast, so that's not an issue.
Yeah.
And just going down the ones, it's like, none of them fit any of these.
You should have sent them a test message saying, hey, YouTube, moderation developers, Franz Kafka's The Trial was not an instruction manual.
Mm-hmm. Clash Pride says, I did, meaning get the alert, but I have the bell thing on, so please, if you like this, not only subscribe, but also hit the bell so you get notifications. And Bicky says, I got the alert, but knowing the guesses of the algorithm, it usually only sends notification to people who are likely to click on the link to watch, which usually are online. So I was probably in the algorithm list. Yeah, I mean, I would think the whole idea of subscribing means I don't care if I don't care if I watch most of them or not. I want to be notified whenever this user posts a new video. I just found out that, like yesterday, I think it was, about teal deer. I've heard this story from subscribers, and for me, it's true of teal deer. I'm like, teal deer hasn't posted a lot in a while, and then I saw that recent one he did, ironically, about YouTube censorship. I went into his channel. It's like there's all sorts of ones that he's done, that I wasn't notified about.
I mean, it's like that for even for like non-commentary channels, like.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
I think it's their algorithms going kablooey, because they want the algorithms to do things that it's impossible for the algorithm to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, like the bell system was meant to solve that problem of people not getting their shit in their subscribe box, but here it is not working again.
Yeah. I don't know, but I guess we've been at this for about half an hour, so this is probably a pretty good time to wrap it up. If either of you have any final thoughts you want to get out?
Just one last thing. Tomboy MILFs exist. They're called soccer moms.
Mm-hmm.
Tomboy MILFs exist. They're called soccer moms. Okay.
No, they're called Karens, but you wouldn't want to, do the ILF with them.
I would think the Karens would be like a subset of them.
Yeah, they tend to be a subset of the soccer moms.
Well,
yeah.
ILF's not there. It's not a MILF. Now is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Shane.
If they're a Karen, you probably don't have the ILF part.
Yeah, Shane, has your wife encountered any Karens lately?
Not that she's told me, but I mean, our area is pretty conservative and libertarian. We don't really have a lot of that.
Oh, so they're not. Oh, so you don't have any Karens that are calling the police because your kids are selling water without a license. And yes, that actually happened.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But because everyone knows that everything the government does is right, and no one can ever do anything that defies the government's will and be right.
Well, if we're done, I gotta go. I gotta go back to bed.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone who has supported this channel. Again, if you like this, hit like and subscribe, and the bell. Don't forget the bell. And also, if you want to support, please go to donate.bogosity.tv. All sorts of ways to do so. Thank you so very much. Until next time, stay strong and be free.